Well, hey everyone. I hope week 2 is going well for you. And we are on to finding online sources and research, which is arguably like the most important part of your paper. So if you think about like a trial, there's, anyone can say anything in a trial, but it's not a matter of what you say, but what you can prove. And your paper is very much like that. It's not only what you say, but what you prove. So I'm going to give you a little tour today of the CU online library. And if you haven't done this before, then this will be kind of like a little walkthrough as to what you're looking at and how to really utilize the library's website to your advantage. It makes pulling articles so much easier. True story, when I was doing my thesis way back when, this was not an option. It was that long ago. So I had to do a lot of stuff manually, back in the old card catalog days. And it was, so with all the technology we have now, it's very cool. But anyway, so if you haven't been to the website before, go check it out. There's a link right in the LMS that'll take you right to it. But you should be able to. The first thing that comes up is this main search bar. You can also chat with a librarian or make an appointment. And if you haven't done that, don't be afraid to take advantage of the resources that are available to you through the university, including using a librarian. That's literally what they do for a living. So if you are poking around and it feels clunky and you're not finding what you want, having even a half an hour with a librarian to talk with you and brainstorm with you, they can find stuff that you can't even imagine. And they can really help you with the writing stuff, with finding the sources, or even citing them if you hit a roadblock. You're always welcome to reach out to me, but use the resources that are also available to you. So for the purposes of this discussion, I went into my search bar, I logged in, and I put in just deaf culture. And I purposely did a very wide search. In fact, way too wide for the purposes of our paper, but I just wanted to pull up some resources so that you could see what I'm talking about. So there's a whole bunch of resources also on the page if any of this interests you, but there's so much stuff. But let's just do our search. So this is the result list that I got by plugging in just deaf culture, keyword search, deaf culture. And you want to, first of all, if you are not familiar with doing a Boolean search, Boolean, you use like and or exclusionary terms or inclusionary terms to find the search results that you want. So I just did deaf culture, which means that that's going to come up anything that says deaf culture. But if you really want to make sure, so if you look in some of these, it's going to search articles and it's going to give me a hit on anything that has deaf and culture in it, but not necessarily together. But if you want this together, then you would want to put deaf and, in capital letters, not deaf, deaf, and search again. What it will do is it's going to find things that are presumably together. Or you can also do it in quotes, I believe. So you can limit and expand your search. So if you're not finding enough hits, if you're finding too many hits, then you can go. But let's start with the original one because there was a point that I was going to make with that. Okay. So when I do this, the first thing that I see is I'm going to look at my search results. I have 261,000. That's a lot of articles. And most of them are probably not related to what I'm actually looking for. Now, I'm not going to go through 261,000 articles. That's too much time. So there's some ways that we can limit our search. You can add more keywords. You can also limit it to ebooks, academic journals, and it'll tell you how many of each one. You can filter by a subject, a publication. One of the most common ways, and one of the ways that you should limit, is That's a source type. So you can do online full text only, which is really helpful because then you know that anything it's pulling up, you'll be able to read the article right there. You don't have to go searching further for it. It's right there. The biggest thing we want to do is it automatically is going to search publication date all the way back to 1732 to current year. This is not what we want. So we want to limit this even further because while depending on what you're researching, sometimes going back in time can be very helpful, but most of the time you want to limit your sources to just in the last 5 years. Why? Well, research changes. So if you quote me something from 1990, I'm not going to be as convinced because I don't know if there's been newer studies or anything that has come in to that changes that's no longer valid. So I'm going to change this and go back to 2019 just to take it within the last 5 years. Now let's see. Oh, see, now we went down to 43,947. Still a lot of articles, but these are all within the last 5 years, which is a lot better. Now you can look at some of these titles here, and we have topics all over the place. We have the Catholic Church in deaf culture. We have the role of fingerspelling in Saudi Arabian deaf culture. I mean, very specific. We have elements of French deaf heritage. So you take a look at some of the stuff that you're seeing, and if these are kind of all over the place and not what you're looking for, you may want to decide that you want to limit these further. And really get more specific. But for the sake of argument, let's pick an article and look at it further because this is some of the stuff that you need to know. I'm going to pick a traditional article from like a journal. So in other words, some of these say like ebooks and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I want to look at an actual like professional journal because that's one of the main ones that you're going to see. So let's pick this one, Teaching Deaf Culture in American Sign Language Courses Toward a Critical Pedagogy. So it tells you very briefly where it's from, the dates, and it will give you, if there's a full text, you have HTML full text as well as the PDF, which is fabulous because you can pull up the full article and just look at it right now. If we click on this link of the title, it's going to give us a bunch of different functions that you should look at first. The first thing that's most important, it's going to give you an abstract. So an abstract is a very brief, usually one paragraph summary that tells you what the article is about and what you can expect to see. And most often it will also tell you what the outcome or what they found, what the findings were of the study. So this will tell you, basically give you enough information to decide, well, do I want to read further? Do I want to read the whole article? Does this have anything to do with what I'm writing? If it doesn't, you can move on. If it does, then you may decide to click on this PDF full text link, pull up the full article, and then you can see the whole thing, which we're going to do in a second. But first, I want to kind of walk through this over here because there's a few things that you do need to know that are going to be very helpful. So as you're pulling research, as I mentioned, you're going to be pulling multiple articles. Now, for the purposes of this course, I think I only make you do 5 or 6, but most students, just putting this out there, most students ended up citing and including far more sources than the 5 or 6 I require. So just know that I think depending on what your paper and where your topic goes, you're going to need more than that. So start pulling articles, and most people had about 15. You don't need to summarize all of them. There's annotated bibliographies we're going to be doing in the upcoming weeks, but for your paper, you want to have enough sources that cover the topics and the points that you're trying to make. So as you're writing your outline, the different points that you want to make, that's what you want to be searching for. So the first thing, you can print it. Not a lot of people doing that, but you could. You can save the article to your Google Drive or your OneDrive. This is very helpful because as you start to accumulate articles, as I've mentioned, you may think, oh, I'll remember that and I'll know exactly where that little piece of evidence was. Yeah, you won't. It's very challenging to do. So keep track. If you see something that's really critical, either keep track of it somehow. Either save it to a Google Drive or a OneDrive, or even just take a notebook and write down the author, the title, and what was it about the article that linked to your outline. Or you can do similar to what I walked through when we were talking about like the writing in content 2 lecture of week 1, where they had the outline and then the different articles were linked to each point that was listed in the outline. That's a great technique to do as well. So, or you can really, once you are logged in, you can create a note. You can add something right in here. You can save these within your library instance. So once you're logged in, I would just make sure that you are logged in, because I have done that before as well, where I saved, or I thought I saved articles, but I wasn't logged in appropriately, and then it lost the things that I searched for. So, but you can save it. You can even just save it to your computer. A lot of different things you can do. You can add folders within the library. Again, once you're logged in, so you can create a folder just for this class, and you can add anything that you find to that folder. So next time you log in, you can just open that folder and all of your articles that you searched for last time will be there for you. The two main things that I use very frequently are Cite and Permalink. Cite is very helpful for exactly what you would think. You click on that and you'll get citations, and it will automatically cite your article. And we're using APA, so I'm going to scroll down to APA 7th edition, and then it's already formatted for you, the entire thing. So I can take this, I can copy it, and I can just drag it right over and put it right into my reference list in my paper. I usually recommend doing that as you go. It's just much easier if you already have a template that you're working off of. If you find an article that's relevant, just throw it right into your references when you have the page up. It makes it much easier. And then if you end up not using that article or whatever, you can always delete it, but it's so much easier to delete something off your reference list that you don't end up using than having to backtrack and find the article and then include it that way. So do with that what you will. You can also use a permalink. Now, permalink is very helpful because this is exactly what it sounds like. It's a permanent link to this article. So even if you're not logged in to the CU library here, you can link directly to the article using this link. So if you copy it, and then you keep a list, which I would recommend you do, in digital notes or whatever you want to do. Then if you're like, oh, I need to go back and look at that article again, you can always open this at any time and paste that specific link, and it will take you immediately right back to the article. And that link doesn't change. So sometimes your search results may change, but the permalink doesn't. It will always take you to the article. Now, there's a couple of other links here too that are very helpful. So the authors are hyperlinked, the source is hyperlinked, and the subjects that are covered in the article are hyperlinked. So if you want to expand your search and you want to see what other research this author has done, you can click right on Timothy Regan here and see and those articles will come up. You can also search that particular journal and see what else was covered in that journal. You can search by topic or the other keywords that come up, and it will automatically search that as well. So that can be very helpful depending on what you're looking to do. And you can also listen to the article. So if you prefer to listen to your content, it is more accessible, and you can always listen to the article being read to you instead of having to read, whichever you prefer. Some people are better with audio feedback. So let's go back to, so once we have that, let's look at the article itself, because these are some of the things you need to be looking for. So I'm going to pull up our actual PDF and it will open here. This is how it appears in the actual journal that it's found. Now I'm going to blow this up a little bit because the eyes aren't what they used to be. Now this will tell you where it was published, when it was published, etc., etc. Again, the abstract will be here. There's a couple of parts of an article. Now, if we're looking at this too, I mean, this is 23 pages. So, this is not a short article, which is why I said you need to get really good at skimming and kind of looking at information before you decide to dive in, because you're looking for very critical information. And I would love to say, yes, you should read the entire article word by word, but that's not as likely when you have to do like 20 of them. So look for the information that you really, really need, skim the rest. So one is the abstract. So that'll tell you whether or not, is this even relevant to the conversation? Okay, yes it is, then we want to read more. Read the introduction. The introduction is going to be very similar to the introduction that you're going to write for your paper. You have to establish a reason for writing the paper. So this talks about the history of critical pedagogy and social justice education and different things that have happened. And as you can see, they have used their own sources to back up what they're saying. So it's not just their opinion, but they're saying there's a number of works dedicated to the topic of critical pedagogy in world language education, and then they're all quoted here. There's various articles that, like, look, here's all the evidence that we have that what we're saying is true. There are a number of works that are dedicated to this topic. At the same time that such concerns have gained attention, another parallel development has been taking place in foreign language education, the increasing number of courses and programs in American Sign Language. And again, there's sources for that too. In this article, we discuss a curricular design project to bring these two developments together. So this is a really great and well-written introduction. It says, we know that this is true, and we know that this is true. And we're going to talk about how these two influence together, and we're going to have a conversation between the two of them. It's very well established what they're going to cover and why. So they kind of set the stage of what they're going to talk about. They talk a little bit about the history. They present their evidence of other research review. It's what's called a research review, which means they're not just relying on their own opinion, but they've gone into the research, and this is what they've come up with that sort of backs up everything that they're going to talk about today. They're making it easy for you. Here's all the evidence that we found to date, going back a ways. Some of it goes back to 1980, but they include that as well. So sometimes there is a place for going back that far. So if your conversation warrants it, you can use older sources, but it has to be basically like, here's the history of something and here's why I'm including it, kind of thing. So they talk about different things. They're really setting the stage, adding more information. Yours is not going to be quite as fancy, but this is their way of presenting different points, teaching about the deaf world. And then this is all going to be about that part of the conversation and the place of American Sign Language in deaf culture. So you can see that they're splitting their topics, they're introducing them, they're adding research for each one. Deaf cultural identity. Now, we're certainly not reading every word, but even as we're skimming, we have a pretty good sense of like the different points that the authors are trying to make and how they're making their argument. Now, once the authors are done setting the stage, then usually they're going to identify a problem or really get to the heart of the conversation, and they're going to offer a solution or a next step, or here's what we should do. They're adding different parts. So language teaching in the time of COVID-19. Well, this is a new aspect of the conversation that probably hasn't taken place before, obviously, because COVID-19 was novel in 2019 or beginning in 2019. So it has thrown a monkey wrench into a lot of conversation. So they're including that because it's relevant to the newer information. So now they're going to talk about, here's our ideas to problem solve or change whatever. They add different tables that could be data they've collected or different ideas or different things that they've done or surveys that they've conducted. And this is all of their additional information. And then they're going to end with a conclusion. And they revisit very briefly the initial problem that they established. And they're going to say, in other words, so again, critical pedagogy, blah, 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 blah. And here's why we needed to do this. And then they're going to say, and so as you can see, we have, this is why we need to do this. And this is why it's so important. And then they have their own references. Now, to be fair, and also full disclosure, the way that they are formatting their references is not in APA style. So while a lot of this can be useful to you in writing your paper in terms of the flow of the writing and how they cite certain sources, the reference page and the font and things like that, this is from the professional journal, so yours will look different. This is not APA style. This is not exactly how it should look. So just know that. However, I did mention in the other one about also using someone else's references and that could be very helpful. If you find that this article is so spot on, it like totally connects to the conversation, it's really helpful, there's a lot of information in here that ties directly to what you are doing, it's also worth taking a look at their references to see what they use. Not that you're going to be copying like what they said, but look at the sources that they got, especially if you're having trouble identifying sources. This can be very helpful for that. Say, well, where did they get their information? Because that can save you a lot of time and lead you in the right direction to finding sources that you also should be reviewing, because it's the same conversation. So you can look at specific journals that keep popping up or just specific ones, and then you can go back into the library and search any of these articles and then review them and potentially use them in your paper if you think that they will connect with what you're writing about. So just by looking at the titles, you can be like, this might be interesting and I want to include that. Then, and there's a lot of resources here. So a lot of this is information that you could use. Now, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be doing what's called an annotated bibliography, which I'm going to explain in more detail when we get there. But essentially, an annotated bibliography is a way to summarize a piece of research that makes it easier for you to, one, revisit that article in the future, and two, it forces you to summarize the article so that when you're writing your paper, you have a very easy way to incorporate the article into your own work. So again, if you're the person that's jumping ahead, feel free to write something like that. It's going to be something you're going to be doing in future weeks, but I would encourage you to keep track as you go, because it will be very helpful that way. Let's see. Go back to the results list. Oh, that's very cool. I got distracted. The Sound of Metal is actually a really good film. I don't know if anyone has seen it, but The Sound of Metal and Coda are both films that are related to deafness. Sound of Metal is more like a first-person account of a man who was a drummer for like a heavy metal band, and because of drumming and being part of the music scene, it causes him to lose his hearing. And you actually go through the film from his perspective as the individual who basically wakes up and has no hearing, or it's significantly suppressed. So parts of the film are silent, parts of them there's noise introduced because that's what he's experiencing. It's very unsettling and uncomfortable, but that's the point. And then Coda is a film that starred Marlee Matlin about a young girl, hearing girl, with deaf parents and a deaf brother. And that was on Apple TV. Great film. Both very good films, but very different perspectives on talking about the deaf experience. But anyway, totally sidetracked. But if you're interested, I would check them out. Just interesting that, of course, that would come up. I just did deaf culture, so it's pulling literally all kinds of different things. So this is going to give you books. It's going to give you journal articles. It's going to give you all kinds of different things. Now, for the most part, most of the things that you're going to find here are reputable. Once in a while, you may also do a Google search, or you may come across other sources or resources online. Some of them are reputable, some of them not so much. For example, I strongly encourage you to, and the book will tell you this as well, stay away from things like Wikipedia and things like that. Those can be very helpful in giving you information or framing something out, and it's quick information. But as you know, Wikipedia is edited by whoever, so it's not necessarily as reputable a source as, say, a peer-reviewed journal. So it's really important that you're not using all pop culture references for your paper. Having some, not a problem, depending on what you're talking about. Some of it might come from a website or whatever, especially if, let's say, again, you're using deaf ministry, you may want to reference the church's website because that you're going to draw on information that they've included. So sometimes that information is going to be very relevant, but it shouldn't be the bulk of your research or evidence or what have you. It should be from peer-reviewed, meaning from reputable journals or things like that. And in fact, you can limit your search even further when you look at source types. Right now I have it set to all results, but you can limit it to just academic journals or other things. So things like magazines, books, films, and ebooks are not as reputable, can still be useful, but if you want to make sure that you're just pulling from peer-reviewed academic journals, you can click that box and then you know that you're getting the most reputable. Sometimes news is flawed, sometimes ebooks are flawed because it could be opinion. Magazines, again, it's just someone writing. It's not necessarily backed up with other research, whereas academic journals will be. They will also have done their own research, so what they're saying is stuff that you can quote and you can use in your own research because it's considered pretty accurate and relevant. I'm trying to think if there's anything I missed. I don't think so. So this is for you to sort of just get you going. Start digging, start doing some searches, tweak your keywords if you're getting too many, too little, if you're really hitting a wall and you're not getting far enough into what you think you need to support your paper. Again, reach out to make an appointment with a librarian or use the Ask a Librarian feature at the top over here where you can just do it virtually. It's basically like a message feature where you can email and just get a quick question answered or reach out for help and get guidance. Feel free to let me know. I'm also happy to meet with you. And of course, we have our weekly on Wednesdays at 2. It's going to be an open kind of Google Meet where I'll just keep it open. People can pop in like office hours. So if you want to just kind of bounce ideas around or say, I'm really not sure, or I have 2 in my head and I want to walk through them. I'm really not sure before I start doing all this work. And I want to make sure that I'm on the right path and I'm headed in the right direction, or I think I know what I'm doing, but I'm not sure. Use that time also. That is for you, whatever works. So with that, I'm going to let you do some researching on your own. Happy searching. It actually can be pretty cool. You'd be surprised the kind of stuff that you might find. Some of it's a little weird. If you're getting a lot of stuff that's like really out of left field or just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, then you want to refine your search a bit. And you also want to do the searching sooner rather than later because, again, as you're doing this outline, what you say is what you can prove. So if you're doing something, you get 3 hits, then you're not going to have enough, relevant research for your topic. Maybe it's too narrow. So doing them kind of in tandem and seeing what's out there is a really good starting place to see how much where you're going to guide your paper. And again, feel free to post in the discussion forum, ask peers for their feedback, ask me. I'll be poking in throughout the week as well to give feedback and respond to questions and things. But hopefully, this will be helpful to get the research piece going. And if you have any questions, let me know. Have a great week. Bye.